That's just these two tracks. And his tone is just so full. Freaking cool.
And built this bar in the sand and I call it home. Yeah, I got a new life for the meantime.
I'm just going to play you the demo real quick so that you can hear the demo.
I really wish it worked out, but then the sand between my toes wouldn't be here and now.
Because a lot of these act like analog in some ways, which I love. That is the trick to making something sound radio ready and giving space to your mix. You don't need analog gear, but you need plugins that can emulate what analog does. And some of it is super subtle. It's a super subtle distortion that builds up over time across all the tracks, across different tape machines and different EQs and different compressors. They all add a tiny bit of distortion, and digital's too perfect. Let me pop some guitar in there. All right, guys, welcome to Midnight Sound Academy, and we're going to be talking about some advanced pop country mixing today. This is a fun one. I've been planning this one for a while. This is a massive Pro Tool session here. This is going to be super advanced, and what you're seeing here, you know, most of this was played by Grammy Award-winning Nashville session musicians. Not all of them are from Nashville, but some of them are, and they're absolutely incredible. We're going to break this thing down and show you how this was produced. I'm just going to play you the demo real quick so that you can hear the demo. We'll just go from there.
I really wish it worked out, but then the sand between my toes wouldn't be here and now. I'm cooling off.
I'm going to play it through verse 3 and 4. I'll end at chorus 2.
Went one way to the East Coast. Ever since that day you ravaged my soul. I got rich quick off some crypto and built this bar in the sand and I call it home. Yeah, I got a new life for the meantime. Got a new girl in a spot by the seaside. Yeah, it's all so fast and I'm holding nothing back. Whatever I can do to be rid of my past, I'm on the rebound. I might regret it later, but I'm fine right now. It's just a little rebound. Ain't nothing that some time can't sort out. And you guessed it, I just can't sleep. I've been watching this damn fan spin all week. It's been messing up my heartbeat. And I'm wondering if you're really already over me. I heard you got some new girl, and now she's the center of your whole world. Is it really gonna end like this? I guess this time I screwed it up more than I ever did. Yeah, I got a new life.
All right, so that song is called Rebound. It's one of my favorite songs I have ever freaking written, and I wrote that with my friend Allie, and she's a really cool songwriter and musician here in Anchorage, Alaska. We are going to just sort of play the song here. I'm not going to get into too many plugins or anything yet. We'll get there. But I'm going to solo some different things as it's playing so you can hear the instrumentation, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the musicians that played on it. That piano is amazing. That's a reed down here.
I really wish it worked out.
I'm going to mute my lead vocal, and I'm going to mute the background vocal bus right now. All right. Bass, that's John Thomason. Drums. So initially with the drums, we had... after this demo, I added drums with Stephen Slate drums, and then I ran it through some of the analog stuff I have down here to make it sound better, and ended up deciding to call up a guy by the name of Nicky V and had his crew track drums, and that would be Steve Brewster, who's played for some big people out there in Nashville, and they did a fantastic job on these drums. So anyways, I'll just kind of let's play it up to the chorus here. Just listen to this electric guitar. It's ridiculous. That's this guy here. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, Nicky V and Steve Brewster did the drums. Danny Rader did the electric guitar. Thank you, Danny, for being gracious enough to do this. This is Kenny Chesney's guitar player and Keith Urban's guitar player. And he toured with Keith Urban, I think, for 10 years, and then he tours with Kenny now. I think he's been touring with Kenny for a few years, I think is what I read. This song, I've got a lot of other guitar players I work with as well. Zach Mano has done electric on some of my other songs. So has Daniel Uraib, who's doing acoustic. All the acoustic that you heard up here in my demo was me playing on my Gibson J45 Southern Jumbo through a U87. Daniel has huge credits under his belt as well. Ed Sheeran, Justin Timberlake, Camila Cabello, and so many other people. Absolutely one of the most incredible musicians I know is Daniel Uraib. And I've worked on about 15 projects with him so far. Mostly for other clients of mine here at the Midnight Studios. So if you ever, if any of you guys have songs like this and you hear anything that you like and you need me to connect you with these guys and you want me to help you get your song produced with them, and you want somebody like me to handle it, feel free to jump over to midnightsoundstudios.com. The links will be below. In our academy, if you're listening on YouTube, our academy is, where you can really get the full video here, where you can completely dive into all the super technical stuff. That's over at the website too, and we'll link that down below. But we're going to be releasing a ton of information on here just for everybody to check out, just because it's cool. So yeah, this is kind of the guts of the song, yo. Before we get into drums, I'm just gonna kind of let you listen to some other things. I'm gonna walk you through who did what. I already told you, Danny Rader, electric guitar, drums, Steve Brewster from Nicky V's team. Thank you guys. And then I added a little percussion in there, but it's not that impressive. I'm not a percussion player. I'll just solo that so you can kind of hear what's going on here. It was the perk kick was on the MPC. I got a bus. I got everything sent to a perk bus, but I don't even have anything on it. A lot of times I'll have compressors on this bus. For some reason I didn't this time. I don't know why that is actually, but hey, it is what it is. The shakers I did on the U87. Same with the tambourine. This was on the MPC. Great sounding drums, guys. Love it. And I should mention, the reason you don't see a ton of plugins is because my style of mixing, I have a bunch of analog gear down here, and before I put plugins on anything, whether it's been recorded through analog or not, sometimes I leave it alone, but sometimes I don't leave it alone, and with drums especially, I usually don't leave it alone, and that's why you see it says subcommit.cm, right? Kick.cm. That means I committed it. So before I started putting plugins on this stuff, I actually ran it through analog. If it was drums, it was my analog API stuff. And if it was guitar, it was either API or my SSL stuff. And this is EQs and preamps. And then I also have a UA 1176. So before I start, the reason you don't see a ton of plugins on my vocal bus is because a bunch of my vocal chain is analog, but I have all the plugin versions of that analog, and sometimes I use the plugins and sometimes I use the analog. In this situation I used the analog and then added on plugins afterwards, but I will run through later exactly the chain that I use with plugins so that you guys can see everything. And yeah, like this is going to be a pretty good pretty lengthy course, if you're going to get through the full thing. And so if you are one of the people that got the entire thing, thank you, for doing that. If you're somebody who's watching on YouTube, I really hope you gain some knowledge from this video. And I hope that you can apply this to what you guys are doing in your studios. Before we actually get into what I did with every specific drum, I'm going to show you a little bit more of what is going on down in here. Let's listen to, you guys heard the original demo that I recorded of the acoustic right here in my voice. So let's just...
For the meantime, got a new girl.
We're going to listen to what Daniel did, Daniel Uribe. Here we go. Sounds really good. These are the really high Nashville tuned guitars. If you don't know what that is, Nashville tuned guitars, look that up. I don't want to get into it now, but that's what you're hearing here is Nashville tuned. Now we have the regular acoustics. And Daniel's also doing the pedal steel, which I'll play with the acoustics. Here's the reverbs, which I've committed. These might have been Daniel's reverbs. Oh no, if my name's on it, it means I did the reverb for it. Let's turn these up. Let's hear what these reverbs are doing. You can kind of hear what it's doing. Oh yeah. Let's put those back to where they were. So it's pretty subtle. Sometimes I will take things out of my acoustic bus, which this is all should be going to, and I'll send it to the main master because it's getting crushed too much on my compression, which I have going on the acoustic bus here. I've got some EQ, some compression, another compressor. Love the 33609 and just the more EQ. We'll listen to what all that's doing a little bit later. But those are the acoustic guitars and the pedal steel. Let's listen to this banjo, which is Zach Mano. And he did the mandolin. So what you're actually hearing is a bunch of different things. So let's look at his tracks here because, all right. That's the chorus. So he's doing banjo. So there's a resonator, which is this thing here. I've got some compression with an LA2A. Let's turn this off. Got a banjo. Mando 1. Mando 2. Pedal steel. So here's just all the acoustics. That's all that stuff in green. It's pretty cool. And now let's move on to the acoustic bus here. We still are going to get into drums, by the way. That's really going to be one of the first things we talk about. But I really just kind of want to show you guys. Let's see. I want to see what this is doing. This is the first time I've opened up this mix in a while. So I'm even like, I wonder why I did this. Because every mix I end up doing something different. It's never always the same. And yeah, there's different reasons for different stuff. Yeah, it's a little tighter. Just a tiny bit of compression. Just like 3.5 dB of compression with the 33609. Before that, I've got about 2 dB of compression on the LA2A from UA. Taking out a little bit of 241 with the Pro Q3. And then I'm taking out some 140 and bumping some 1400 hertz before all of this stuff. So I've got 2 Pro Q3s. It's interesting, I don't know. I must have heard something, because I don't know, just from looking at this, I don't exactly know why I chose to do this. I'm in headphones now, by the way, when I'm going through this with you guys, but we have pretty high-end monitors here, and when I was mixing this, I was on the monitors. So I obviously heard something here in this frequency. Oh, yeah. That's pretty, yeah. I mean, let's see what I boosted. Solo it. Interesting. So I was just giving it a little more mid-range presence, and then I'm taking out some more mud. Yeah. It's probably just to kind of, you know, you're always carving out space for other things to fit. Let's do a couple more housekeeping things. Let's listen to the piano and just kind of break open these tracks. Actually, let's break open the electric a little bit more. I'm not going to open up every plugin yet. We're going to kind of do that in sections. We're going to actually mix from the top down here shortly, where we go through every single track by track. But I'm just kind of letting you get used to the way the session is put together right now. And like I said, if you want to skip this part, feel free to skip this part. Piano, Reed Pittman, also from Nashville, also plays for a ton of fabulous big musicians and is super incredible. He put this piano in. He put this synth in. It's called high synth, but it sounds like a piano. He did this. He did this. It's in the chorus. We pop some guitar in there. Yeah, Reed plays for like Lady A and a bunch of other huge names and companies. He's super talented. Listen to that. Listen to this synth he put in here. That's why I just love that. It sounds so good with the guitars. With the electrics, not the acoustics. And he did organ. Hammond B3, I bet. Yeah, pretty cool. Let's put all that together. You can tell I like to drive the song with the electric. I mean, that electric is overpowering everything in the song except for my vocals. Let's just keep listening to it like this for a second. So there's the, oh, I love that organ. There's some verb here. It's committed, I think. Yep. Keys in all keys and all acoustics together. These are all the keys in pink, obviously. All right, let's listen to what Danny's doing. Woo! Listen to that solo. Freaking cool. Let's boost this beef synth. That's so cool. Man, I should have had that in the mix more, but I have that kind of tucked away. Yeah, maybe I should have boosted that, right? Like, you'll always find things that you're like, oh, I could have done this, could have done that. But the song came out great, I mean, for an independent artist who's really, I'm just starting out in the last, 5 to 10 years. And for me to be able to produce music like this from Alaska with these guys who have been in all these incredible songs and worked with all these incredible talented artists, like, it's pretty incredible that that's where our world is at. And there's no excuse now for not getting a song produced right. And I don't really have a lot of patience for the people that want to do it quick. And I'm not necessarily talking about rappers that come in with beats off of YouTube. There's nothing wrong with that. But there are a lot of people that really don't understand what goes into making something, radio ready. And it ain't quick and it ain't cheap. And if you don't put in that work, you might not, like, unless you're super talented, because I'm not the most talented person in the world. And that's why the production has to be this good for me to get anywhere with it. And if you are really super, super, super extra crazy talented, yeah, you can definitely get away without spending a lot of money on production. It will just sound good. Hey guys, it's Tyler from Midnight Sound Studios, and what you guys are actually watching is a snippet of one of our full courses. And if you're interested in one of our full courses, our links will be below. This is our studio here. It's our website. This is some of the work we've worked on. Feel free to go listen. We also shoot music videos. Feel free to watch. If you want to learn more and you want to see how this was really put together and watch the full 2-hour course, then go to the Academy on midnightsoundstudios.com. You're going to get all our session stuff. You're going to get our charts. You're going to get our stems. You're going to get the full package to practice mixing with. We really appreciate you watching. Let's get back to the content. As long as you're going to the right person. So yeah, that's before we really get into the nitty gritty and show you all the plugins on the drums, the last thing I'm going to do is sort of a housekeeping thing, is I will show you my mix bus. I want you to see what is gluing this song together. Now, in real life, when I mixed this song, I was using my analog SSL bus compressor, and I don't think that the plug-in version of this sounds quite the same as the analog one. I can feel it gets more glued together. It definitely just feels better. It's really kind of hard to explain, but this plugin is still pretty amazing what it can do, and you're going to be able to hear it. So I'm going to turn this puppy off and then back on. This is the very first thing on my mix bus, and it is doing a lot. We've got an attack at 10. A lot of times, the famous settings for this puppy is 30 for the attack, and this is the Dr. Dre settings. Release on 1.1. Ratio at 4. Sidechain filter, it varies. This is probably right around where I had it in real life, somewhere between here and here. So I'm just putting it about here. It's a little bit different in real life. You have different settings for this. Leave the mix on 100%. Anyways, yeah, attack and release, 30 and 1, super popular. It's better for pop and hip hop. I decided to go with auto for the release, which is super cool, and it makes the snare super snappy. And 10 for the attack, and 4 for the ratio. Listen to the drums when I turn this off. Oh yeah. This one compressor on this mix bus, like everything in the mix it ends up here on the master bus, right? Like all this stuff has its own bus, and then it all meets at this one channel, and everything that's on this channel affects the whole song. And a master bus, having a good master bus chain is really one of the most important things to making something radio ready, in my opinion. Master bus, I do top-down mixing, so I actually start with not all of these plugins, but I start with a good quarter to a half of these plugins already on and doing something, and then I start mixing into it. I go to the drums and start doing stuff to the drums, and there's already this happening while I'm doing that. But in real life, it's an analog version. It didn't used to be. I used this plugin for years until I bought the analog version. In the future, I want to get as many of these plugins in analog form that I can have, so that I can have an entirely analog mix bus chain. But right now, all these different plugins that I've got going on, which we're going to run through, are absolutely insane, and they work just perfect. So that's the what the SSL bus is doing. You can hear it coming together more. It brings everything up. It brings the bass up. It brings the drums up. Let's put my vocals in. Let's put my vocals back in. Oh yeah, and you can hear Allie, who I wrote this with.
Whatever I can do to be.
So she's singing background vocals with me. Thank you for doing that, Allie. That's super cool, yeah. Fairchild. Wow. That's a lot of compression. That's a crap ton of compression, but we've got the mix down here on like 45%. So it's not 100%. I don't have it compressing 100%. I'm blending it. It's not gain. I didn't do the gain structure right on that. You can hear that. It shouldn't be jumping in volume, but it is. You know, I will use these volume knobs. Sometimes I realize I'm driving too hard into one of these other plugins, and I pull it back a little bit later on with something like this, so that I'm not driving these other plugins into distortion, because a lot of these act like analog in some ways, which I love. That is the trick to making something sound radio ready and giving space to your mix. You don't need analog gear, but you need plugins that can emulate what analog does. And some of it is super subtle. It's a super subtle distortion that builds up over time across all the tracks, across different tape machines and different EQs and different compressors. They all add a tiny bit of distortion, and digital's too perfect. You need distortion plugins that are able to clip and distort in different ways, tube saturation and other types of harmonic distortion, that you can add different types of distortion to different tracks. And when you can learn how to be nuanced with what types of distortion you're adding and when to pull back on it when you're hitting the distortion too hard, right? Like I love to send mixes through my API preamps. I have some API preamps down here. You send them drum tracks or mix or anything through it, which if you hired me to mix, guys, I'm pretty affordable for a mix. It's $150 a mix right now. And, you know, everything's analog. So it's going to go through APIs and SSLs and 1176 universal audio compressors and 1073s from Neve and all kinds of other stuff. And I can totally mix digital if you wanted me to, right? Like I have clients that will be like, hey, can you just mix everything digitally? And yes, I can. It just means that to get you the same result, and what I used to have to do when I didn't have a bunch of analog gear, to get that same result is I have to pull out a heap of distortion plugins and screw with them on different tracks. And when I run everything through analog first, I don't have to do that as much. I don't have to use as many plugins. You would see 3 times the amount of plugins on this session that you do if I had not run all these tracks through analog. And not all of them were run through analog. If you don't see .cm, it probably wasn't run through analog, but it was because it was all recorded through analog in the first place. All this stuff was recorded through high-end analog gear. And so not all of it needs, screwing with. It just doesn't. But you also can't just, turn all the volumes up and expect the mix to be perfect, which is why you do see a really decent amount of plugins on this session. But when I was mixing all in the box with no analog, there would be 3 times the amount of plugins, and a lot of it would be harmonic distortion and different EQs that I was doing to get the same result. So it just would take a little more time to, get the mix right, in my opinion, when you're doing it all in the box. But it really depends. It can be quicker. And now that they've got digitally recallable analog coming out everywhere, one of these days I'm going to put a analog console like that in here, and everything will just be, perfect. But so we've got the Fairchild on my mix bus next, which is a really great compressor. If you don't know about it, make sure to research it. It's been around since the 60s or before, and it's been on almost every record you've ever heard. The Brainworks equalizer, this is the mastering version. It's a stereo equalizer, and I just use this for some basic correction. I'm just adding a tiny bit of bass here, 0.8 to the mix. Sometimes it's a little more. Sometimes it ends up being like 1 or 1.5. Sometimes it ends up being less. Sometimes I don't use it at all. For this one, I did. And the cool thing about this curve is that where the frequency is always muddy is around the 250 hertz range to 300 hertz range. This is where all the mud is. See where it says 250 to 300? Those are usually frequencies that you want out of a mix. And what's cool about this bass shift knob on this plugin, which I really like, and I think I learned this trick years ago from watching Mix with the Masters and watching Greg Wells, who produces for like Adele and a million other people. He used this on a lot of his mixes, and I found this super helpful. This bass shift knob is just insane. I love what it does. It dips the frequency that's bad while it boosts the frequency that's good. And it's just a really quick one knob, like just a little bit of that just makes your mix sound better. Let's mess with it.
Yeah, it's all so fast and I'm holding nothing back. Whatever I can do to be rid of my past, I'm on the rebound.
So I had this at 0.8.
I might regret it later, but I'm fine right now.
And the reason you heard the guitars disappear is because you see this is mono section. So when I solo this, you're not hearing anything in the stereo section. This is a mid-side EQ.
Yeah, it's all so fast and I'm holding.
So yeah, drums, bass, and any mono guitars you're hearing.
Yeah, it's all so fast and I'm holding.
That means anything that I panned over to the side or that was recorded left to right, like acoustic guitars, most of the pianos, most of the electrics, you're not going to be able to hear that when I solo this section. But when I solo the stereo section, listen to what happens. So now you're hearing the stereo section, which means everything that's on the left and everything that's on the right and nothing that's in the middle. So anything that was panned to the middle of the mix, I can EQ that separately from all of the stuff that was panned over to the side of the mix. And again, I use these types of EQs on my drum bus, and I'm using it on my master bus. I'm doing something different over there though, and I don't always use it on the drum bus. I can't actually remember if I'm using it on the drum bus here. We'll find out later. Black Box analog design. This thing, I have a preset on this one that I just really like. I don't always use presets. A lot of times I'll start with a preset and then I'll screw with it. And then I adjust the mix knob a little bit, but let me just bypass this.
Yeah, it's all so fast and I'm holding nothing back. Whatever I can do to be.
Brings in some mid-range crunch, you know what I mean? It's tube distortion, and I'd love to have the analog box of this in the studio one day. Hopefully I will. Love what this thing does. I'm using the mid-range glow master. I just love it. It works on 80-90% of everything.
Yeah, it's all so fast and I'm holding nothing.
Let's mess with this.
Whatever I can do to be rid of my past, I'm on the rebound.
Oh yeah. You can really see that's that harmonic distortion I was telling you about.
Yeah, it's all so fast and I'm holding nothing back. Whatever I can.
We can change the flavor. Yeah, there's millions of flavors. It's like wine, okay? There's millions of flavors of harmonic distortion. There's so many different combinations of things you could do on different instruments, and it is the cumulative effect, the combination of all that across all your tracks that makes a song sound like what you're hearing here. And there are absolutely plugins you can get where you can just put it on every single track and do exactly what I did with analog. You would just want to get yourself an SSL plugin, which we'll get into a little bit later, this one right here or anyone like it, and you just want to copy it to every single track before all these plugins that you see right here. You would just take this and copy it as the very first plugin, boom, 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 every single track, and you would EQ and compress every single track in the mix first with one of these. And if you guys would like to see me take these tracks and break them down to when they were super raw and didn't get run through analog and didn't have anything on them, and actually do this from scratch with plugins instead of just watching the mix that actually made it to streaming, let me know. Maybe I'll do that. Right now, we're just breaking down the mix that made it to streaming. And if you want to emulate what I was doing by running it through analog, you just get some API plugins, put it on all your drums, get some SSL, put it on guitar, and other things like keys. SSL always goes on keys for me. I love this plugin. I use it on everything. And you would just copy this to all your tracks and do a little EQ and compression with it on everything until the mix sounds really great. And then you start adding more compressors, more distortion plugins, more reverbs, more this, more that. And you've already got a really great mix that sounds like it's going through an analog console. So that's my recommendation to you guys if you need to do something like that. So yeah, there's these boxes here. We've got some Pro Q3 going on. I've talked about this in some other videos on my YouTube channel. The Pro Q3 is pretty cool. I have a trick, and I cut 40 hertz, not on every song, but on this one I am. And you'll just find that a lot of music out there doesn't have much going on under 40. And some songs, you could argue this is way too much. Some songs I'm only cutting here. It really just depends, right? I'm listening to it and I'm moving it around until my ear tells me that it's right. And there might have just been a little boominess going on and I pulled it all the way up to 40. But all of this information down here, like I can hear some of it on my monitors because my monitors do go this low, but 99.9% of car speakers and home stereo systems and headphones, you can't hear anything down here. So why would I be pushing bass information, which is going to affect these compressors later on? It's going to affect compression and limiting. Why do you want to push too much bass down there where the human ear can't even hear it? On 80% of the systems that it's going to be played on. So that's the thought there. And there are other engineers that do this. They might do it in more subtle ways, and I do that sometimes too, by cutting specific instruments more rather than just putting a whole EQ on the mix. But I am cutting everything under 40 at a 24 dB octave from this mix. And you can hate me for it, but it's what I did. We're dipping 174. Let's listen to what that is. Oh yeah, a little nasty, So there's a couple other frequencies. Yep, nasty. A little de-essing basically. Cool. SPL Vitalizer. I think this is another Greg Wells trick. You can steal it from me, but I stole it from him. I use another preset on this that I like. Sometimes the only knob I really like to screw with is the bass. I really want a hardware. This will probably be the first piece of hardware I get for my mix bus. I want one of these. I love what this does to the bass. Listen to, and I guess I'll just kind of say it like Greg Wells said it. I tried to kind of learn what this thing does, but I don't really know how everything works. These intensity and LCEQ and process and mid-high tune, like all of this, other than the stereo expander and the compression and the bass to soft to tight, which is it's really clear what this does. You'll hear it in a minute. Yeah, these knobs, I can hear what they're doing, but I don't understand the science behind what they're doing, and I'd have to read the manual, and I don't feel like doing it till I own one. And even then, it's about what you hear. So let's listen to what it does. Soft. If we put this back to factory default, that's where it is. I usually use mastering session start as my starting point. So let's listen to this, and I'll switch the preset on. It just adds a lot of low end. I ended up right around here. Yeah. Bypass. Yeah, so I'm really just using it for this bass soft to tight knob. Like this thing, I love it. Next is Soothe. It's barely cutting a dB and a half. I mean, in some spots it's going a dB and a half or a little bit more, but barely. It's really just it's almost just like to have it there, just in case there's something poking through that shouldn't be. But I'm pretty confident in all the other EQ moves that I did leading up to this mix bus to get all those frequencies that I wouldn't want out. But this is like, it's almost like AI in the sense that it can just instantly detect all the frequencies that need to be gone out of your mix or out of your vocal or out of whatever you put it on, and they're gone just like that. And it's just a one knob like intensity thing, and that's, you know, it's too much. Wow. Ew. All right. Yeah. I never use it. I rarely use it on this. That's about good right there. I mean, we're barely hitting a dB.5. Studer, I have since switched to a different tape machine plugin, but this is what I used on this mix, and I like the Studer. Right now, I've got a bunch of different tape machine plugins, but right now I'm using the other Universal Audio, which is the Ampex, and I think that one sounds better than the Studer, but the Studer still is great. We're on 15 IPS, inches per second. We've got it on the 456, yeah. Basic settings. Little more EQ. Little more EQ. You're not even gonna be able to hear this, but I'm taking out that and a little bit of that out of the entire mix. And then the God Particle, love this plugin. Jason Joshua, you're the bomb.com dude for releasing this. It feels like cheating, but it is a really quick way. And this plugin basically just tells me, like, I used to do this by ear, and there's nothing wrong with doing it by ear. A lot of people argue you should still do it by ear. Some people don't. This is just one of those plugins that tells you, okay, like overall, here's where the bass in your song should be hitting. Here's where the mid-range in your song should be hitting. And here's where the treble in your song should be hitting. It should be within these green bars here. And if it's not, if it's less or more, then it's too much for your mix. Like, there's no right or wrong way to mix, but it either sounds good or it doesn't. And there are ratios that have been proven to be like, here's where the mid-range to low-end ratio, bass to mid-range, should be. That's what you're looking at here, to high-end. And bass, if you went to sound school, you'll learn that low-end has a lot more energy than mid-range, which is why you wouldn't want to pump the low end up to here in a mix, right? So that's, the mistake that, because low end naturally is just producing a lot more energy than the mid range is. So the low end will actually pummel the mid range, and you won't be able to hear the mid range if you've got too much low end. Like if it's going over this, it'll just crush all of this. And even if you see this in the green, if there's too much low end, you will not hear any mid range in your mix. And so that's why you really need to get this right. And this is just a really quick way for me to look at, okay, let me push this up. My bass and my mids are great right there. My highs, not so much. It's telling me I need a little more high information. There we go. We're getting a little bit now. But that's too much for me. And that's not how I would do that, right? I would actually probably use an analog EQ that I have down here. I'd probably use some SSLs, and I would make a change like this with my SSLs. I don't have any more room on here to do that, but will. I think it sounded right before, even though that's where you have to, let your human judgment come in. I obviously made a decision. It is a little crispy. I made a decision to not push this. But what I will say is that I have pulled this down. I used to be pushing. When I exported this, I was probably pushing it more like this. Actually, no, I wasn't. That limiter's hitting too hard. It's probably about right there. Anyways, yeah, so you could argue this is basically telling me, hey, you don't have enough high end in your song. But when I went to go add high end, it didn't sound right. And even though it was telling me that and everything else sounded pretty good, I just instinctively decided not to add or push too much high end into there. So that's, something to learn. But that's the mix bus. Like I said, there's a lot going on here. All of this stuff adds up. And I'm afraid to take it off because I don't know what it's going to sound like. Let's see. So the mix actually got a little bit louder which isn't technically good. You usually want your mix to stay the same volume when you turn all these on and off.
Yeah, it's all so fast and I'm holding nothing back. Whatever I can do to be rid of my past, I'm on the rebound.
That sounds like trash, though. Okay, now I'll turn all these back on.
Yeah, it's all so fast and I'm holding nothing back. Whatever I can do to be rid of my past, I'm on the rebound.
Do you hear how that just got glued together, literally? Like, that's where the term glue comes from. And that sounds completely different than what it sounded like before all this stuff was put on. And like I said, most of this stuff, the SSL, the Fairchild, and this stuff I probably did before I started even mixing the drums. And that's why I'm talking to you about it now. This is a advanced course. And some of you guys, if you're watching this full thing all the way to the very end where you cover every little thing, that means you probably went to the website and got the course. And I want to make sure you get everything you can get out of this. I want you to literally feel like you're sitting in the room and thinking about what we were thinking about when we wrote this and put this together and chose the musicians that we chose to put this together for us. Let's see here. I think that's it with the mix bus. There's another thing called rear bus, which is kind of part of the mix bus. Basically, everything but drums goes into this compressor, and it's a parallel compressor, and it's a Andrew Shep's technique. He's another engineer that I learned a ton from. Absolutely incredible dude. And we'll go over. I'll turn the rear bus off real quick so you can hear what it's doing.
Yeah, it's all so fast and I'm holding nothing
Turn it back on.
Whatever I can do to be rid of my past, I'm on the rebound.
To me, it just sounds like it's filling in the low mids and the mid range just a little bit more. Like I said, it's a parallel compression technique, which is just a copy of a bunch of different instruments running into this channel here, and I'm putting compression on it and turning it up. Let's see how much it's up over here. It's probably, no, it's not much.
Yeah, it's all so
I'll push it more so you can hear what it's doing.
yeah, it's all so fast and I'm holding nothing back. Whatever I can do to be rid of my
Yeah, so it really, the guitars are certainly coming to the rear bus, and let's see if bass. I don't always send bass to the rear bus. Oh, I'm sending bass to the rear bus. So everything except drums, yeah. And vocals maybe. Am I sending vocals to? Yep, vocals. Okay. Everything except drums is going to the rear bus and getting compressed. So it's literally just a copy of the entire song except for the drums, and I'm compressing all of that information into this 1176, which I also have a hardware version of down here from UA, and it sounds really good. But these are the plugins, and they sound almost identical. And I usually use the LN, which is the real version that I've got, but this Blue Stripe version has a ratio of 2. Most 1176s have a ratio of 4. They don't have an option for 2. It starts at 4. I'm looking at mine right now: 4, 8, 12, and 20. This one has 2, 4, 8, and 20. No 12. And it also has a slow option for the attack, which my 1176 and all the other 1176s don't have. 1176s, even on a slow attack, because this is a slow attack for 1176s, you can put 1176 on fast attack or slow attack, and then you can go really slow. But this is the really slow feature that not all 1176s have. And the truth is that even the slow on an 1176 is extremely fast. And the release on an 1176 almost always for me stays on fast. And the attack, if I'm doing vocals, it's somewhere between 1 and 3. Right now, this is a fine setting. It's getting 5 to 7 dB of compression, and it's just ever so slightly blended into the mix to fill out that mid-range and those low mids. It really accentuates the guitars a little more. And what it's doing is it's sort of leveling everything out. It's like when the guitars are coming up to do something, it will sort of turn other things down a little bit to let them have some room, and vice versa. That's kind of what the rear bus is doing. That's a shortened way of explaining it. And if you want a full video on exactly how the rear bus works, where we break that down and go over the rear bus, I don't use it on every mix, but I do set it up for some mixes, and this is one of the ones that I did. Yeah, next we're going to go ahead and get into the drums. The very first person that got this song was the drummer, and he played all the drums that you're hearing to this demo. So I am actually just going to go ahead and play the demo again, and we're going to listen through and hear what he did to my demo without any of the other instruments. It's just the drums and my demo, which is where this all started. And when I recorded the demo and sent it to him, I do charts myself sometimes, and if you don't know about the Nashville number system, I don't want to get into that here either because this is a mixing video, right? But this is your Nashville number chart here for my song Rebound. And if you have got the course off of our website, this is included, and so are all the stems for the song, so that you can practice on them and do what we did, which is the exact same way I learned. Key of G, 121 BPM. This was done by Nikki. Thank you, Nikki, for doing this. Just made my job easier. I didn't want to do it. I didn't feel like doing it. Nikki did it for me. And he'll do it for you if you need one done. If you start learning how to chart your songs out before you begin to actually make the song, it just makes the whole process easier. And then, like I said, the drummer was the first person that played on this song. So this chart got sent out to every guitarist and every bass player and everybody else to play on this song. And it's just, you see what I'm saying? Everybody in Nashville goes by these numbers. Any musician that's a professional, like on Sound Better, that has credits with big names like these guys do, they all use these charts. That's what they use. That's what they read. And if you don't know how to do it, it's okay. There are guys like me who can chart these things out for you. And this is what you want to send to the musicians that are going to play on your song. So that's what we did. We sent the guitar over, and they charted this out and then had the drummer play to this with the demo. So let's listen to how that came out. Why did I just open Apple Music? It's the last thing I want to open with Pro Tools open. Let's listen to this demo. Make active. All right. So let's go to where the drums start coming in.
10 feet, not a cloud in the sky, just miles of beach. Went one way to the East Coast. Ever since that day you ravaged my soul, I got rich quick off some crypto and built this bar in the sand, and I call it home. Yeah, I got a new life for the meantime. Got a new girl just by the seaside. Yeah, it's all so fast, and I'm holding nothing back. Whatever I can do to be rid of my past, I'm on the rebound.
Great. We're gonna mute this for now. Loving it. Let's listen to this kick drum. You'll see what I mean. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. You can tell it says .cm. That means I ran it through my API. Excuse me. All right. Well, the Neumann here picks up the coughs, guys, so I apologize. Okay. So there's your kick. That's just pretty much raw. You can hear his bleed. The reason you don't see plugins on it is because I used a trigger. So I'm using Steven Slate trigger, and I'm using this drum sample to hit every time his real drum hits. Now, I could take off. Let me just show you real quick why I run everything through analog. Kick 05. Yeah, here is the version of the kick that was directly from them without the analog on it, the non-committed version. We'll take trigger off of this, take the analog insert off, and we'll just play this back. Oops. That's the super raw right here. So all I did is I ran that through some APIs. Or actually, it looks like I may have triggered it, but I wouldn't have. You could still hear bleed in this track, which means I don't think I triggered it. But if I did trigger it, I only triggered it a tiny bit to give it some extra thump, because you can hear the. Yeah. All right. Now let's listen to after the API, analog API preamp and analog API 550A EQ. Oh, I definitely triggered it. You can hear I triggered it. I also ran it through a compressor, an analog compressor. It's going to be the Universal Audio 1176. So I triggered this a little, but I didn't trigger it 100%. I blended the kick drum sample in so that there was still some of the original signal, so that it was both. And then I triggered again on top of that. So there's your original kick drum. And here's your new kick drum after the analog, which, like I said, was an API preamp and an API 550A EQ, which you can get the plugins of, going into a Universal Audio 1176. And that sounds way better. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this old kick now. You get the point. Trigger. Let's put trigger on top of this kick. You see what I'm saying? I love that. It's... Now, to be honest, I don't always trigger this much. You know, it just depends. It depends on where the drums are recorded, who played them, what mics they used, and depending on how they come back to me, depends on how much I have to do to them to get them to have the sound and the pop that I want. And believe me, the stuff you're hearing on the radio, this is what they're doing to get that sound. Because, as you heard, the original drums were a little bit more raw sounding, and that's the same with the snare and everything else too. But it doesn't mean that the drums are bad. That's just how drum recordings come. They come raw, and you have to mix them. All right, let's go over the sub. This is just a mic that they put in a different spot right outside the kick drum, and it picks up the super sub frequencies, and looks like I do have a little bit of that blended in there. I have a lot of that blended in there. And on the kick drum, this is on the trigger. I also have a little radiator. Let's bypass that. See, ooh. I've only got a tiny bit of mix, but I've got the heat at 100%, and I've got it only at like 25% wet, maybe not even that, 10%. That absolutely adds some grit to that kick. Listen to when I mute this. Yeah, it just fills out the kick a lot more. And all right, awesome. Moving on to the snare. Boy, oh boy. I also, like I said, I sent everything. That's why it says CM. It means it already got run through. I also have a 1073 and analog. This is a 1084 because of the extra band up here. But my 1073, which I have an analog 1073, it doesn't have the 10. It just has the 12. And I recorded. I wouldn't have run the drums through 10. Sometimes I will run snare. I really like snare on 1073. This 220 hertz. I love it. But for this snare, I ran it through my API preamp, API 550A EQ, and then I'm using the plug-in version of the 1073 to give it some of that 220 boost, which I'll turn it off. So yeah, it's already bypassed. There's your snare. Let's see. That's without a trigger too. We got a trigger on the snare, so you'll hear when that comes in. Let's turn this on. Let's push this. You hear that? Ooh, I love the sound of a 1073. Sorry, 1084. It's just it's gorgeous. And the analog one does sound a tiny bit better, but you can barely tell the difference. A little bit of mids. I'm barely adding any mids. It's really... Ooh. It's that bottom. I'm just adding a little bit of bottom. Gotta give the snare a little booty. Yep. But I was already doing some of that with the API. But on the API, I'm probably boosting 100 on that snare, not 200. The API, sometimes I do 200 on the API, but there's something about 100 hertz on the API. And then boosting a little bit of 200 with the Neve on top of that. I love it. Cool. Let's add the trigger. Let's see what sample we used first before we listen to them together. Ooh, dark. I'm using two samples. This one Ooh, and that one. A little bit of this one. This one's turned down. This really dark one is turned up. So I'm blending in 2 drum samples with the original snare here. And now we'll play them together. Way different. I'm gonna mute the 2 triggers while this is playing. Ooh, you see how much better and how much more full the drums sound. I'll admit, like I said earlier on in this, there are some things that if I could change, I would, about how I mixed this. One of the things is I had just moved into a brand new room and I didn't have the proper sound acoustic stuff for this particular room yet. I didn't have it designed yet for this room. And later on, I got GIK acoustic panels and bass traps and all the things I needed to make this room sound how it needed to sound. But these drums might not be hitting as hard as I could normally get them to hard, or as normally as I could get them to hit. Anyways, moving on. Snare reverb. Oh, I don't have this plugin anymore. It was Ultra Verb, but I'm gonna pull up something different for the snare verb right now. Let's turn this down. Let's just do the snare verb right now.
For the meantime, got a new girl and a spot by the seaside.
Seventh Heaven. Oops.
And I'm holding nothing back. Whatever I can do to be rid of my past, I'm on a rebound. I might regret it later, but I'm fine right now.
So for the snare verb, we could try a couple different things. Let's try chambers, and let's go to Sunset Chamber, which is based off of the Real Reverb Chamber, which is a room at Sunset Sound Studios in California. Let's see what the snare sounds like with this. Let's solo the drums. It's a little long for me. I could screw with it, but I'm actually going to go to rooms, and we're just going to try something a little bit different. It's going to be a shorter reverb. Drum chamber, no, we don't really want that because that's kind of what they already recorded it in. Let's try Studio A, and then we'll mess with some other ones. I wouldn't normally turn the reverb up this loud on the snare. You'll be able to hear what it's doing, but yeah, that's why I'm turning it up, so that we can hear what it's really doing. And then I'll blend it to taste later after I move through some presets here. Oh wait, I just clicked the wrong thing. There we go, back to rooms. Okay, here we go. Ooh. No, I don't really like that. Let's go back to Studio A. Yeah, I'm cutting a little bit of the highs out of the reverb. Yeah, that'll work. It's doing kind of the same thing that the Ultra Reverb was originally doing. I don't have that plug anymore because I just don't use it as much, and I was subscribing to it. I do have the H3000 though from them, which I use all over everything, and that you'll see later on in the mix. Okay, moving on to Tom Bus. The Toms, I ran through some SSLs, and now we have, let's turn all this stuff off on the Toms, and let's just turn it on real quick. Let's go to a spot where you can actually hear the Toms doing their thing. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, we were already at a spot. going to start it right here because you can really see them kick in. There's just 2 toms. It's kind of the way they do it in Nashville, not 3. Better stereo image, I bet. Right, guys? Okay. Maybe it's just a little more simple. Keep it simple, dude. All right, let's turn all this back on. You can hear the toms. Now we'll turn all these back on and we'll listen to the toms. Just a little more aggression, a little more bite. This is distortion. Like we talked about earlier, this is harmonic distortion. So I already was doing some EQ with analog SSL right before this, and then committed that through because I don't have 80 of them because I don't have a console. I do have a console. I have a 32 channel digital control surface, one of the Pro Tools ones, but I don't. But it's not analog. It's just a control surface. It just makes it funner to mix. Really, that's about it. Easier to mix. My job's a little quicker. I like it. But yeah, we're just adding a little bit of distortion. If I turn this off, let's solo this. Wow, I got some sort of little buzz going on in the background. If you guys hear that right now, I'm sorry. I don't know. I've got some sort of hum in the microphone that I'm recording through for some reason right now. So my apologies for that. Yeah, it's barely anything. It's just adding a tiny bit. This is the Oxford limiter, which I'm just doing a little bit of gain reduction. We're cutting barely anything. You see, it's just the lights are just coming on a little bit, so we can keep those toms in control so that they don't overpower anything. And now we're cutting a lot of the bass from the toms, which not everybody does, right? But listen to that. A little too much. You'll see why I had to cut it. It's too much. Yeah. So I'm gonna turn you guys up in the headphones a little bit. All right, so let's see here. There we go. So yeah, it's just the same thing on both toms. I don't do different things to different toms. It's just a copy paste. And then the rest of the stuff, there's some analog stuff that I did. There doesn't seem to be plugins on the rooms and the overheads. I probably tried some different things and just decided not to do anything. And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. I don't like to have my hats hitting too hard, and sometimes I will compress them, sometimes I won't. It doesn't look like I did too much. It looks like I left them sort of open and just how they were recorded for the most part. But I did go in and do some analog things, just some EQ and compression to the rooms. Drum bus. Let's look at drum bus, and then we will move on to percussion. Let's just turn my percussion on with the drums and see what that sounds like. Okay, yeah, so nothing too fabulous. It's just a little bit of percussion. So we don't really need to go over the percussion. There's not much going on there. There's not much going on. All the percussion is going to a percussion bus, just like the drums. Meet at a drum bus, and then we put some stuff on the drum bus, right? We got an API. 2500 bus compressor. We're running a release of 0.5, ratio of 2, attack at 30, which is the slowest. Ratio is sort of low for a drum bus. You could push this to 4. If you push the ratio to 4, you're just getting more compression. But I decided to let it breathe a little here and just lightly tap it. That's just the drum bus. Put the compressor back on. It's just a little glue. I'm pulling out. Here's some more EQ. We're getting rid of everything under 38 hertz in the drum bus. So, yeah. And we're getting rid of that nasty frequency there. We got a soothe, a little bit of soothe going on the drum bus, just to catch anything. A little more distortion. See, there's that distortion, guys. It pops up everywhere. Hear it? Ooh, I like that. This is Decapitator from Sound Toys, guys. It's a great plugin to have. It's one of those things you can just put on everything. A little bit goes a long way. Let me mute this, see what this sounds like. Oh yeah, a little more bite. Yep. Attack. Ooh. So you hear what that's doing. This is the SPL Transient Designer. This is also a piece of analog hardware gear, but made to be in a plugin. You can hear what that does. It's the Transient Designer. The WAP. The WAP WAP. You see what I'm saying? The WAP WAP. That's going to be my new name for this. I'm just going to call it the WAP WAP. I love how that sounds, but this, you only need a little bit of it. You might not be able to hear it. Promise you it's doing something. It's just doing, like I said, a little bit goes a long way. When you're first starting out, you'll hear something like this, and you'll just boost it. You'll be like, oh yeah, that's perfect, right? But there's no right or wrong way, but when you can get a little more nuanced with it, when you can really hear what this is doing, because it's ever so slightly blending in that really poppy sound. That's pretty much what you're getting here, and it's by pushing it, you're just turning that effect up. It's the Transient Designer. It literally makes things pop more. Or you can take the sustain out of something, like if you've got too much reverb in something, which is pretty amazing. I usually have this thing set pretty low, and for this song I had it right about here. But you hear what it's doing. Hey, our trusty old Fairchild, time constant of 2, barely any compression, mixed down to like 75%, so barely any compression, just like barely a dB, and I not even got it at 100% mix. That's compressor completely off. And back on, so it's barely any compression, but like I said, we're pulling that back. We're adding some 767. So for whatever reason, I decided to add some mid-range to the drum bus. That frequency there, I'm adding 2.11 dB. Oh yeah, this is one of my favorites. So the human ear can't even hear past 20 hertz in one of my other videos, and I'll link it below. If you guys don't know your frequencies, and you know, this is more of an advanced mixing course here, especially if you're going to get the full course and make it all the way to the end of all these instruments. You are going to want to learn about your frequencies first. And so I have a video that I'll link below that will explain frequencies if you don't understand what that is. But the human ear can hear from 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. And that means anything above 20, as in 40, you can't even hear it. That's like a dog whistle. But I'm adding the dog whistle to the drums. Why? Because listen. Still does something, right? Even though you're boosting 40, which is a frequency we can't even hear, most people, especially I'm 30 now, I probably can't hear anything past 15 or 16K, who knows, maybe 17. I mean, I still have pretty good hearing, but as the older you get, the less frequencies you can hear below 20. And 20 is at the very, very top, and 20 on the low end is at the very, very bottom. Like most human ears can't even hear below 40. So where the bass hits you, right, is 60. Where the kick drum hits you is 60, where the bass hits you is between 100 and, usually between, honestly, 75 to 150. Anyways, I'm not going to like boost this all the way up, but even though the human ear can't hear past 40, we're going to take that frequency, which is we call it air, and this is the air gain, air band, on the mag audio EQ. I want a hardware set of these also, which I'll have one day to run drums through. All of these plugins I'm using on the drum bus, one day my goal, if it's an analog modeled one like this and like this, I want to have a hardware one, but the plugins are absolutely incredible. Even though the human ear can't hear past 20 and we're boosting the crap out of 40, you can still hear it. It's affecting everything under 40 and under 20 in a different way than it would affect it if you had just put it on 20. Listen. Now I'll move it up to 40. It's more subtle, but listen when I turn it off. Whoa. Oh yeah. Like I said, I probably was only adding 3.5 to 4 dB of this. So it's super subtle, even though you can hear what that's doing when I turn it way up. You can barely hear. You can hear what it's doing. If you really listen, when I turn that on and off, you can hear there's more air, right? There's more air, but it's barely there. I'm not relying on one or two plugins to do a bunch of heavy lifting. That's why I have so many plugins, is because each one is doing just a tiny bit. And it all comes together. I don't use this tape machine as much anymore, but here you go. Without it. Oh yeah, you're getting some warmth out of this thing. It's on 2-inch 16 track 456. I use the UA tape machines now, the Studer or mainly the Ampex. But this is still a good one. Let's switch to the Ampex just for fun, so you guys can hear what that does. I love the Ampex. Let's put the Ampex on. I think you guys are gonna hear it. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Yeah, I just like this better. So there's bass amp and there's bass DI. So I'm parallel compressing with the bass DI track. If you guys are tuning in on YouTube, then this is pretty much where it's gonna end for you. If you got the course over at our website, which we will link below, then you'll get to see the rest of it. You'll get our stems. You'll get the Nashville number chart. We'll link the song Rebound down below in case you want to go listen to the track. Thanks for joining me on YouTube to check out all this cool stuff, and I'm excited to go through the rest of it with you guys and really dig into how this track was put together. If you guys have any ideas for, things you'd want to see on this channel, whether it's this song or another song I've used, different types of mix breakdowns, give me your ideas. I'm really happy to be able to share this stuff with you guys, and I really hope you're learning something and being able to apply this information to your own music. And, like I said, you guys have my website down below. Feel free to reach out. I hope this information helps. And, let's move on to the guitars.